For years, I was the quiet woman next door. She never guessed who I really was. My name is Maya, and I live in a modest brick townhouse on Maple Street, the kind of neighborhood where everyone knows everyone else's business, or at least they think they do. The morning sun filters through my kitchen window as I water my herb garden on the windowsill. Basil, rosemary, thyme. Simple pleasures. The scent of fresh coffee fills the air, mixing with the earthy smell of the plants. This is my sanctuary. I've lived here for 3 years now, and I love the quietness of it. No gates, no security cameras at every corner, no pretense. Just a regular street with regular people living regular lives. Or so it seems. My mornings follow a comfortable rhythm. I wake up at 6, brew my coffee in my old French press, the one with the slightly wobbly handle that I could replace but never do. There's something honest about worn things, about objects that carry the weight of daily use. I sit at my small kitchen table, scarred oak, secondhand from an estate sale, and I read. Sometimes it's the news on my tablet, sometimes it's a book. Today, it's both. The tablet itself might raise eyebrows if anyone looked closely. It's not the latest model, but it's not ordinary either. Custom made, with security features that would make most tech companies jealous. But who's looking? To anyone passing by my window, I'm just another woman reading over coffee. I dress simply. Today, it's jeans, a soft cotton sweater the color of warm honey, and my favorite sneakers. They're handmade, imported, but you'd never know it. They just look like comfortable white sneakers, worn in and perfectly broken. My jewelry is minimal, a delicate gold chain my grandmother gave me, and on my right hand, a ring. It's vintage, with a small sapphire that catches the light when I move. I turn it absently, a habit when I'm thinking. Through my window, I can see her. Tasha, my neighbor from 2 doors down. She's getting into her car, a bright red luxury SUV that's leased, not owned, though she'd never admit that. She's dressed in what I call impressive casual. Designer labels visible from space, heels too high for a Tuesday morning, hair styled within an inch of its life. She catches sight of me through my window and offers a wave that's more dismissive than friendly. I wave back, genuinely warm, because I was raised to be kind, regardless of how others treat me. Tasha moved in about a year ago, and from day one, she's made it clear where she thinks we both stand on life's ladder. She stands at the top, or so she believes, and I'm somewhere near the bottom, clinging to respectability by my fingernails. A charity case. Someone to be pitied. "Morning, Maya," she calls out, her voice carrying that particular tone that wealthy people use when they're being magnanimous to the less fortunate. "Don't you just love these crisp autumn mornings? I'm off to my Pilates class at that exclusive club downtown. You know, the members-only one? Maybe someday you could join as my guest. They have wonderful classes." The club, I know it well. I'm actually on their board of directors, but Tasha doesn't need to know that. "That's kind of you, Tasha," I say with a smile. "Have a great session." She drives off, and I return to my coffee, to my quiet morning. The thing is, I'm not offended. I learned a long time ago that people's perceptions of you say more about them than about you. Tasha needs to feel superior. It's how she navigates the world. And I don't need anyone to know who I am to feel secure in my own skin. But let me give you some context, because this story isn't really about Tasha. It's about choices, It's about what we value and why. 10 years ago, I sold my tech startup for a sum that would make your head spin. Multi-million-dollar deal. Life-changing money. I was 32, burnt out, exhausted from the grind, from the constant performance, from wearing power suits and sitting in boardrooms where I had to be twice as good to get half the respect. I was successful, wealthy beyond my wildest dreams, but I was empty. So I stepped back. Not away, but back. I kept my hand in business. I sit on several boards, I invest, I mentor, I run a private foundation that funds educational programs for underprivileged girls in STEM fields. But I do it quietly. I don't post about it on social media. I don't attend galas unless absolutely necessary. I don't need the world to know. I bought this townhouse for cash under an LLC, furnished it with things I love rather than things that impress, and I simply breathe. I garden. I read. I take long walks in the park. I volunteer at the local library on Thursdays, helping kids with their homework. I live below my means not because I have to, but because I want to. My wealth is a tool, not an identity. But in a neighborhood like this, where status is measured by car models and handbag labels, my simple life reads as struggle. And to someone like Tasha, struggle is weakness. The rest of my day unfolds in its usual gentle way. I work from my small home office, really just a converted second bedroom with a desk, my laptop, and a wall of books. I take calls, review investment proposals, check in with my foundation director. At noon, I make myself lunch. Today, it's a salad with vegetables from the farmer's market, topped with a lemon vinaigrette I make myself. In the afternoon, I walk to the corner store for a few things. The owner, Mr. Kim, greets me with his usual warmth. Maya, good to see you. How's the reading going? Finish that book I recommended? I did, Mr. Kim. It was beautiful. Thank you. We chat for a few minutes about books, about his daughter who's applying to colleges, about nothing and everything. These small connections, this is what feeds my soul. As I'm walking home, Tasha pulls up beside me in her SUV. She rolls down the window, and I can smell her expensive perfume mixed with the new car scent. Maya, sweetie, you walked to the store in this heat? Honey, you know you could have asked me for a ride. I'm always happy to help out those less fortunate. Less fortunate. The words hang in the air. I enjoy the walk, I say simply. Good for the soul. She looks at me with something like pity. Well, if you say so. But really, if you ever need anything, a ride, or maybe some of my old clothes I'm donating, just let me know. We girls have to look out for each other, right? Her old clothes probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and she knows it. The offer is wrapped in generosity, but it's really about reminding me of the gap she perceives between us. That's thoughtful, Tasha. I appreciate it. She drives off, satisfied with her good deed for the day. I continue my walk home, grocery bag in hand, and I think about my grandmother. She raised me after my parents passed when I was young. She cleaned houses for a living, wore the same 3 dresses rotated throughout the week, but she carried herself with a dignity that no amount of money could buy. She was a pillar of our church community. Sunday mornings, I'd watch her sing in the choir, her voice rising above everyone else's, clear and strong and full of faith. After service, we'd go to the community center where she volunteered, serving meals, organizing clothing drives, making sure nobody went without. Baby girl, she used to say, Some people wear their crowns on their heads for everyone to see, but the real queens, they wear them in their hearts, and that kind of crown never tarnishes. She taught me that true wealth isn't in your bank account. It's in your character, your kindness, your ability to remain true to yourself, regardless of circumstances. She taught me the value of service, of giving back, of lifting others as you climb. Those Sunday dinners at her small table, with neighbors and church members crowded around, laughing and sharing stories, that was richness. That was community. That was love. That evening, I'm in my backyard, tending to my small garden. I've got tomatoes growing, some peppers, a few sunflowers that are just starting to bloom. My hands are in the soil, and there's something deeply grounding about it, something that connects me to the earth, to reality, to what matters. My phone rings. I wipe my hands on my jeans and answer. Maya, darling. It's Richard, my longtime friend and attorney. I have the documents ready for the new scholarship program. When can you come by to sign? Thursday works for me. Morning? Perfect. And Maya, that donation you made to the Children's Hospital? They want to name the new wing after you. I pause, trowel in hand. Richard, you know I don't want that. I know. I told them you'd say that. They're persistent, though. They really want to honor you. Tell them to name it after the nurses. They're the ones doing the real work. I just signed a check. He chuckles. You're impossible, you know that? I try. After we hang up, I return to my garden, but I'm smiling. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In this moment, with dirt under my fingernails and the smell of tomato plants in the air, I feel rich in ways that have nothing to do with money. From over the fence, I hear Tasha's voice, loud and clear. Well, I told her she could borrow something from my closet, but I don't think she'd even know how to wear designer clothes properly. Some people just don't have that natural elegance, She's talking to another neighbor, Linda, probably about me. Linda murmurs something I can't quite hear. Oh, I'm not being mean, Tasha continues, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I'm just being realistic. Look at her. She walks everywhere, buys her clothes from who knows where, lives in that tiny place. I mean, bless her heart, she's doing her best with what she has. We can't all be blessed with success. I could go inside. I could let it roll off me like water off a duck's back. And mostly, it does. But there's a small part of me, the part that's human, that feels the sting. Not because I care what Tasha thinks, but because it's exhausting being underestimated, being dismissed, being seen as less than. But I've learned patience. I've learned that revealing your hand too early serves no purpose. Sometimes, the universe has a way of handling things in its own time. I just didn't know that time would come so soon. The incidents started small, but they accumulated like drops of water wearing away stone. It was the little things at first. Tasha accidentally parking in my designated spot repeatedly, forcing me to park on the street. When I politely mentioned it, she'd act surprised, apologetic, in a way that felt performative rather than genuine. Oh my God, Maya, I'm so sorry. I'm just so scatterbrained lately. You know how it is when you're juggling so many social commitments. I'll move it right away. Well, actually, I'm late for lunch downtown. Could you maybe just park on the street today? Thanks, hun. Then there was the garbage situation. Our townhouses share a common area where the bins are kept. Somehow, Tasha's overflow always seemed to end up pushed against my back door, bags splitting open, creating a mess I'd have to clean up. "The garbage service here is just terrible," she'd say when confronted. "I keep telling the HOA we need better service. Of course, some of us generate more waste than others. I entertain a lot, you know. Dinner parties, brunches. It's exhausting, but somebody has to maintain social standards in this neighborhood." One afternoon, I was coming home from the library where I volunteer when I saw Tasha standing with a group of neighbors, Linda, Patricia, and Susan. They were clustered near Tasha's SUV, shopping bags from high-end stores scattered around their feet. Tasha was in the middle of some story, her voice animated, her gestures broad. And I said to the salesman, "If you can't provide better service than that, I'll take my business to your competitor." You have to stand up for yourself in these situations. Assert your value. As I approached, the conversation lulled. They all turned to look at me with expressions that ranged from pity to curiosity to Tasha's particular brand of condescending friendliness. "Maya, perfect timing!" Tasha called out. "We were just talking about the neighborhood association meeting next week. They're discussing raising the HOA fees again. I know for some people that might be a hardship." Her eyes lingered on me meaningfully. "But the rest of us feel that maintaining property values is worth the investment." "I'm sure whatever the association decides will be fair," I said evenly. Patricia, who's usually kind, gave me a sympathetic look. "Tasha, I'm sure Maya manages just fine." "Oh, I'm sure she does." Tasha was quick to agree. "I'm not saying otherwise. I'm just aware that we're all in different financial situations. There's no shame in that. Diversity is what makes a neighborhood interesting, right? We can't all drive luxury cars and take exotic vacations." She said it with a smile, but the message was clear. "You're not one of us." Linda tried to change the subject. "Maya, I heard you volunteer at the library. That's wonderful." "I enjoy it," I said simply. "The kids are great." "That's so sweet," Tasha jumped in. "Volunteering is such a good way to give back when you can't donate financially. Your time is just as valuable as money, I always say." "Well, almost as valuable." She laughed at her own joke. Inside, I counted to 10, breathed, reminded myself that this said everything about Tasha and nothing about me. "Actually, I should get going," I said. "Nice seeing you all." As I walked toward my door, I heard Tasha's voice drop to what she probably thought was a whisper, but carried clearly in the evening air. "See what I mean? Sweet girl, but limited prospects. I try to be nice to her, include her in things, but there's only so much you can do." That night, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine, a good vintage from my temperature-controlled collection in the basement, the one room in my house where I keep some of my finer things. I swirled the wine, inhaled its complex bouquet, and I thought about confrontation versus composure. I could tell Tasha the truth. I could pull up my bank statements, show her the deed to not just this townhouse, but the 2 buildings I own downtown. The investment portfolio that generates more in a month than she likely makes in a year. I could tell her about the foundation, about the board positions, about the speaking fees I command when I choose to accept them. But what would that prove? That I'm richer than her? That I win some imaginary competition she's created in her head? No. The truth is, I don't need Tasha to know who I am. I know who I am. That's enough. Or at least, it should be enough. The escalation continued over the following weeks. Tasha started hosting loud parties that went late into the night, and while everyone else on the street received noise complaints, she'd knock on my door the next morning with a fake apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry about the noise last night, Maya. We were celebrating my husband's promotion. He's a regional director now, very prestigious position. I know you probably have to wake up early for whatever it is you do. Freelance work, isn't it?" "Something like that," I'd reply. "That's great. The gig economy is really thriving. So flexible for people who can't commit to traditional employment." Can't commit. As if my choices were limitations rather than decisions. Then there was the incident with the delivery. A package arrived for me, a birthday gift from a friend, nothing special. But it was delivered to Tasha's door by mistake. When I knocked to retrieve it, she answered with the box already opened. "Oh, Maya, I was just about to bring this over. I accidentally opened it, thought it was mine. We get so many deliveries, you know." She glanced at the contents, a nice scarf, with barely concealed disappointment, as if she'd been hoping for something more interesting. "Cute scarf, very practical." The way she said practical made it sound like an insult. "Thank you for holding it for me," I said, taking the box. "Any time, although, you might want to get a P.O. box if you're ordering online a lot. More secure. I'd offer to let you use my address, but our doorstep is pretty crowded with our own deliveries. My husband spoils me." She gestured to the stack of designer shopping bags visible behind her. I smiled, thanked her again, and left. But this time, I could feel my patience starting to fray at the edges. The breaking point nearly came during the neighborhood block party. It was an annual event, held in the common green space at the end of our street. Everyone brought food, drinks, their kids played, and it was usually a nice, relaxed affair. I made my grandmother's famous peach cobbler, the recipe she'd perfected over decades, the one she used to bring to church potlucks, where people would line up for seconds. I arrived carrying it in a simple glass dish, still warm from the oven. The smell alone drew people over. "Oh my God, what is that smell?" Patricia said, eyes closed in appreciation. "Peach cobbler, family recipe." "It smells incredible." I set it on the dessert table and stepped back. Within minutes, there was a crowd around it. People were raving about it, coming back for seconds, asking for the recipe. Tasha arrived late, carrying store-bought cupcakes from an expensive bakery, each one decorated elaborately with gold leaf and edible flowers. She placed them on the table with a flourish. "Sorry I'm late, everyone. I had to pick these up from that exclusive patisserie downtown. They're $12 each, but you know what they say? You get what you pay for." She looked around, noticed the empty cobbler dish, the crumbs being scraped up by the last few people. "What was that?" "Maya's peach cobbler," Linda said. "Oh my God, Tasha, you missed it. It was incredible." Tasha's smile tightened. She looked at me, then at her elaborate cupcakes which people were politely taking but not raving about. "Homemade?" she asked, the word carrying a slight edge. "How quaint?" "My grandmother's recipe," I said. "That's sweet. Real home cooking. It's a lost art, isn't it? Of course, some of us don't have the time for that sort of thing anymore. Busy lives and all." She picked up one of her cupcakes. These are from the most exclusive patisserie in the city. The chef trained in Europe. He's won international awards. The people around the table nodded politely, but I noticed several of them sneaking back to the empty cobbler dish, hoping for any last crumbs. Later, as the sun set and people started packing up, I overheard Tasha talking to a small group. I'm all for community spirit and participation, but there's something to be said for quality, you know? I mean, anyone can bake something in their home kitchen. It takes a certain level of sophistication to appreciate artisanal craftsmanship. Susan, who'd had 3 helpings of my cobbler, raised an eyebrow. Tasha, that cobbler was amazing. Your cupcakes were pretty, but... Oh, I'm not comparing. Tasha laughed, but it sounded forced. Different things for different palates. Some people prefer simple comfort food, others appreciate culinary excellence. There's room for everyone. I was packing up my empty dish when Patricia came over. Maya, that cobbler was the highlight of the party. Seriously, my kids are already asking if you'll make it again for the Christmas party. I'd be happy to, I said. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Don't let Tasha get to you. She's insecure. I know it doesn't seem like it, but she is. She feels threatened by you. I looked at her in surprise. By me? Why? Patricia smiled sadly. Because you're comfortable with who you are. You don't need validation. That's something money can't buy, and she knows it. That conversation stayed with me as I walked home that evening. Was Patricia right? Was Tasha's constant need to put me down really about her own insecurity? But regardless of the psychology behind it, I was tired. Tired of the small digs, the constant undermining, the assumption that I was less than. Tired of being patient, of taking the high road, of letting it slide. I didn't want to engage in petty warfare. I didn't want to stoop to her level. But I was beginning to realize that sometimes silence can be mistaken for weakness. And sometimes the truth has a way of coming out whether you plan for it or not. The universe, I've learned, has a sense of timing. It was a Thursday afternoon in late October when my phone rang with a number I didn't immediately recognize. When I answered, it was Jennifer Park, the development director at the Children's Hospital. Ms. Richardson, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Ms. Richardson, not Maya. That should have been my first clue. Not at all, Jennifer. What can I do for you? We're hosting our annual gala next month, the one that raises funds for the new pediatric wing. We're hoping to feature some of our major donors in a segment during the event, and we'd really love to include you. I know you prefer to keep a low profile, but it would mean so much to the families we serve. Maybe just a brief video message? I'd been dodging this request for months. Jennifer, I know. You don't want the spotlight, but Ms. Richardson, the new wing is being built because of your donation. A multi-million-dollar contribution. That's transformative. The families deserve to know who made it possible. I closed my eyes. She was right, of course. It wasn't about me. It was about those kids, those families. Let me think about it, I said finally. That's all I ask. The gala is November 15th at the city's main event venue. It would be wonderful if you could attend in person, even if you don't want to speak. Please consider it. After we hung up, I sat in my living room for a long time, thinking. The gala, the ballroom, the same venue where Tasha had bragged about attending some charity event last year, though I suspected she'd bought the cheapest tickets available and spent the evening name-dropping. I thought about my grandmother again. What would she do? And then I smiled because I knew exactly what she'd do. She'd hold her head high and do what was right, regardless of who was watching. I called Jennifer back. I'll be there, but I don't want a big production. No spotlight, no stage appearance. I'll do a brief video that can be shown during the donor recognition segment. That's my final offer. I could hear her relief through the phone. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll make it perfect. The video was filmed the following week in my home office. Nothing fancy, just me sitting at my desk, talking about why education and healthcare for children matters to me, why I believe every child deserves a fighting chance regardless of their circumstances. I didn't watch it after we finished. I trusted their editing team, signed the release, and tried not to think about it. November 15th arrived cold and crisp, the kind of autumn evening where you can see your breath in the air. I spent the afternoon carefully selecting my outfit, something I hadn't done in years. From the back of my closet, I pulled out a gown I'd bought years ago for a different event and never worn again. Midnight blue silk, elegant, simple, with clean lines that didn't scream wealth, but whispered it in an educated voice. I did my own hair and makeup, simple and classic. The only jewelry I wore was my grandmother's gold chain and a pair of diamond studs that had been a gift to myself when I sold my company. Small, understated, but if you knew jewelry, you'd recognize their quality. I called a car service, not my usual sedan, but something appropriate for the evening. When the luxury vehicle pulled up, I saw Tasha's curtains twitch across the way. The venue was exactly as I remembered. Soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers, the kind of old money elegance that you can't fake. I checked in at the registration desk, and the young woman's eyes widened slightly when she saw my name. Ms. Richardson, we're so honored you're here. Your table is right up front. Table 1. Table 1, the donor table, where the serious money sits. I made my way through the crowd, accepting champagne from a passing waiter, exchanging pleasantries with people I knew from various boards and committees. Several people recognized me, greeted me warmly, and I could see the curiosity in their eyes. Maya Richardson doesn't usually attend these things. I was deep in conversation with Dr. Marcus Chen, the hospital's chief of pediatrics, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Oh my God, this place is incredible. I told you these events are worth every penny, James. This is where the real networking happens. I turned slowly. Tasha, in a dress that was trying too hard, too many sequins, too tight, too much everything. Her husband James beside her, looking uncomfortable in a tuxedo that didn't quite fit right. Our eyes met across the space, and I watched her face cycle through confusion, surprise, and then suspicion. What was I doing here? I offered a small smile and a nod, then turned back to Dr. Chen. Anyway, as I was saying, the new imaging equipment will be transformative for early diagnosis. But I could feel Tasha's eyes on me throughout the cocktail hour. I saw her whispering to James, saw them both glancing my way. I saw her trying to maneuver closer, to overhear my conversations, to figure out what I was doing at an event where tickets started at $500 per person. When we moved into the dining room for dinner, I found my seat at table 1. I was seated between Dr. Chen and Margaret Walsh, the hospital's board chair. Across the table were other major donors, a tech CEO, a real estate developer, a philanthropist whose family name adorns half the buildings in the city. And 3 tables away, I spotted Tasha. She was near the back, craning her neck to see the stage, to see the important tables up front, to see. Her eyes locked with mine again. I saw her say something to James, saw him look over, saw them both trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Dinner was excellent, perfectly prepared dishes, each course more impressive than the last. The conversation at my table was stimulating, ranging from medical innovations to the responsibilities of wealth to our favorite books. "Maya," Margaret said warmly, "I can't tell you how pleased we are that you're here tonight. Your generosity has quite literally changed the future of pediatric care in this city." "It's an investment worth making," I said simply. "Every child deserves the best possible care." The speeches began after dessert. The hospital CEO spoke about their mission, their achievements, their goals. Then came the donor recognition segment. "Tonight," the CEO said, "we want to honor some very special individuals whose contributions have made our vision a reality. Some prefer to give anonymously, and we respect that. But a few have agreed to let us share their stories." The lights dimmed. A video began to play on the large screens flanking the stage. The first few donors were featured, their names, their amounts, their photos. Respectable 6-figure donations, each one celebrated with warm applause. And then my face appeared on the screen, 20 feet tall. I heard a gasp from somewhere in the room, but I kept my eyes forward, watching myself on screen talking about education, about second chances, about my grandmother who cleaned houses so I could dream bigger. The multi-million-dollar donation from Maya Richardson made the new pediatric wing possible, my video self said. But this isn't about me. It's about every child who'll be diagnosed earlier, treated better, given hope. It's about the nurses and doctors who'll have the tools they need. It's about families who won't have to choose between bankruptcy and their child's health. That's what wealth is for, not to impress people, but to improve lives. The video ended. The applause was thunderous. A spotlight found me at my table, and I stood briefly, nodded my acknowledgement, and sat back down. I don't enjoy attention, but I could smile graciously. But in that moment, illuminated by the spotlight for just those few seconds, I knew that Tasha could see exactly where I was sitting, exactly who I was sitting with, exactly what Table 1 meant. The CEO was still talking, but I wasn't really listening anymore, because I could feel the moment my life shifted, the moment my secret became public, at least in this room, at least to everyone who mattered. After the formal program ended, people began to mingle again. I was immediately surrounded by well-wishers, people wanting to thank me, to talk, to connect. I was gracious, but tried to keep the conversations brief. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Tasha pushing through the crowd, making her way toward me with James in tow. Her face was pale, her expression somewhere between shock and confusion. "Maya?" Her voice was small, uncertain, nothing like her usual confident brashness. I turned to face her. "Hello, Tasha. James, nice to see you here." I didn't know." She was struggling for words. "You never said—" "Said what?" "That you—" She gestured vaguely at the room, at Table 1, at everything. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" I smiled gently. "Tell anyone what, Tasha?" She just stared at me, and in her eyes I could see it all. Every snide comment she'd made, every condescending offer, every assumption. They were all playing back in her mind, recontextualized by this new information. "I should get going," I said. "It was a lovely evening. Enjoy the rest of the gala." I walked away, leaving her standing there, and I didn't look back. The car ride home was quiet, peaceful. I watched the city lights blur past the window, and I felt lighter somehow. Not because I'd proven anything to Tasha, not because of the recognition or the applause, but because I'd honored my commitment to the hospital, to those children, and I'd done it with integrity. The secret was out, at least partially. In a room of 400 people, in a community of professional philanthropists and high net worth individuals, people now knew who I was. Word would spread. It always does. But as we pulled onto my quiet street, past the modest townhouses and small front gardens, I realized that this was still home. This was still where I wanted to be. Nothing about tonight changed that. The next morning, I woke to my usual routine. Coffee in the French press, herb garden needing water, sun streaming through the kitchen window. The knock on my door came at 9 a.m. When I opened it, Tasha stood there. No makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside, letting her in. I led her to my living room, the one with the second-hand furniture and the hand-me-down coffee table, and the walls painted a soft cream. She sat on the edge of my couch like she was afraid to get too comfortable. For a long moment, she just looked around the room, really seeing it for the first time. Not through the lens of judgment or comparison, but just seeing. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. "A big apology." I sat across from her in my grandmother's old armchair. Waited. "I've been awful to you. Not just rude or thoughtless, but unkind. I made assumptions. I judged you. I put you down to make myself feel better." Her voice was quiet. "And the whole time, you could have said something. You could have corrected me at any moment." "Would it have mattered?" I asked gently. She looked at me, confused. "If I'd told you the first day we met that I was wealthy, would you have treated me differently?" "Yes," she admitted. "I would have." "Exactly. You would have been nice to me because of what I have, not who I am. And that's not real respect, Tasha. That's just fear, or social climbing, or whatever you want to call it." She was quiet, absorbing this. "I looked you up last night," she said. "After the gala. I couldn't sleep, so I just searched. There's not much there, but what I found..." She shook her head. "Your tech company. You sold it for..." The article said it was a multi-million-dollar deal. "It was," I said quietly. She let out a sound that was half laugh, half disbelief. "And you're sitting here in this townhouse, wearing regular jeans?" "I like these jeans," I interrupted with a small smile. "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why would you live like this when you could live anywhere, have anything?" I stood, walked to my kitchen, and poured 2 cups of coffee. Handed one to her. "Do you know what it's like to have everything and feel empty?" I asked. "To live in a penthouse and feel more alone than you've ever been? To wear designer clothes every day and realize you've forgotten who you are underneath them?" She shook her head slowly. "I lived that life, Tasha. After I sold my company, I had more money than I could spend in multiple lifetimes. I bought the mansion. I bought the cars. I went to the galas every week. I had people around me all the time. People who wanted something. People who saw dollar signs when they looked at me. People who were my friends right up until the moment I stopped being useful to them. I sat back down, cradling my coffee mug. I was miserable, successful, wealthy, and absolutely miserable. So I asked myself what I actually wanted. Not what I thought I should want, not what society said successful people should have, but what I, Maya Richardson, actually wanted. And what did you want? Peace, connection, purpose. I gestured around the room. A garden where I could get my hands dirty. Neighbors who say good morning because they're friendly, not because they're networking. The ability to walk to the corner store and talk to Mr. Kim about books without him seeing me as a potential investor or donor or connection. I paused, choosing my words carefully. I kept the wealth, Tasha. I'm not pretending to be poor. I'm on boards. I invest. I run my foundation. But I do it on my terms, quietly, without needing recognition or status symbols. This townhouse? I love it. It's the right size for me. It's comfortable. It's home. The fact that I could buy a mansion doesn't mean I should. Tasha's eyes were glistening. I've been so foolish, she whispered. Not foolish, just lost, maybe. James and I, she continued, her voice barely audible. We're drowning in debt. The car, the clothes, the club memberships, we can barely afford any of it. But I thought if we looked successful, if we acted like we belonged, then eventually we would belong. And when I saw you, living so simply, I thought you were what I was afraid of becoming. Someone who didn't make it. But Tasha, I said gently, you were so busy performing success that you forgot to actually live. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know that now. When I saw you last night, at table 1, sitting with those people, and the video, a multi-million-dollar donation. I spent hundreds of dollars on tickets to that gala and stressed about it for weeks. And you gave millions like it wasn't nothing, I corrected. It was very much something. It was the result of years of work, of sacrifice, of building something valuable. But once you have wealth, what you do with it, that's what defines you. I chose to invest in children's health care. You've been investing in appearances. Which of us do you think sleeps better at night? She laughed bitterly. I haven't slept well in years. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our coffee. Outside, I could hear birds singing, a dog barking in the distance, the normal sounds of morning in a quiet neighborhood. Can I ask you something? Tasha said finally. Of course. All those times I offered you things, rides, clothes, advice, and you just smiled and thanked me? Were you upset with me? I met her eyes. No, I felt sad for you, because I've been where you are, in a different way. I know what it's like to tie your worth to external things. It's exhausting, and it's never enough. There's always someone richer, someone more successful, someone with more status. You can never win that race. So, how do you win? You stop racing. You figure out what actually matters to you, and you live according to those values, regardless of what anyone else thinks. She set down her coffee mug. I don't know if I can do that. Change, I mean. You can, I said. But you have to want to. Not for me, not for James, not for the neighbors. For yourself. She stood up slowly. I should go. Let you get on with your day. I needed to say I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I appreciate that, I said simply. At the door, she paused. Maya, that peach cobbler you made for the block party, do you think Could you teach me how to make it sometime? I smiled. I'd like that. After she left, I stood at my window watching her walk back to her townhouse. Her shoulders looked lighter somehow, her step less burdened. Maybe nothing would change. Maybe by tomorrow she'd be back to her old ways, too deep in her patterns to break free. But maybe not. Maybe this was a turning point. Sometimes all it takes is one moment of clarity, one crack in the armor, for the light to get in. The rest of that day unfolded quietly. I worked in my office, took calls, reviewed grant applications for my foundation. In the afternoon, I walked to the corner store. Mr. Kim greeted me with his usual warmth. Maya, I heard about the gala. Mrs. Chen's daughter works at the hospital. She saw the video. That donation. She said you looked beautiful, very elegant. I smiled. News travels fast. Small community, he said with a shrug. We're proud of you. What you did for those kids, that's real wealth. Not money, kindness. Thank you, Mr. Kim. That means a lot. On my walk home, I passed Linda working in her front garden. She looked up, startled to see me. Maya, Tasha mentioned. She stopped, flustered. It's okay, I said. Yes, I was at the gala. Yes, I made a donation. But I'm still just me. Same person you've known for 3 years. She relaxed, smiled. Good, because I really like you, and I'd hate for things to get weird. They won't be, I promised. As I reached my front door, I saw a few neighbors peeking out their windows, curious, probably discussing what they'd learned. By tomorrow, everyone on the street would know. The quiet woman in the modest townhouse was actually a multimillionaire. The narrative had shifted, but as I stepped inside my home, into my sanctuary with its secondhand furniture and its herb garden and its walls painted soft cream, I realized something important. Their knowledge didn't change anything. I was still me. This was still my life. The only difference was that now they knew what I'd always known, that wealth doesn't define worth, and success doesn't require an audience. That evening, I got a text from Richard, my attorney. Heard you made quite the impression at the hospital gala. Jennifer is over the moon. Also, apparently you're the talk of the town. How are you holding up? I typed back. I'm good. Actually, I'm better than good. I think I might have helped someone today, and that feels more valuable than any donation. His response came quickly. That's the Maya I know. Proud of you. I made myself dinner, pasta with fresh tomatoes from my garden, a simple salad, a glass of good wine. I ate at my small kitchen table, looking out at my backyard where the last of the evening sun painted everything gold. My phone rang. It was Tasha. I'm sorry to bother you again, she said, her voice tentative. But James and I were talking, and we wanted to know if you'd come over for dinner sometime. Nothing fancy, just dinner, a real conversation, if you're willing. I'd like that, I said. How about next Friday? Perfect. And Maya, thank you for this morning, for being kind when you had every right not to be. Everyone deserves grace, Tasha. Sometimes we just need someone to show us we're worth it. After we hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness of my living room, and I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From poverty to wealth, from performance to authenticity, from needing validation to finding peace. My grandmother used to say that life has a way of teaching us what we need to learn, often in ways we don't expect. I thought I'd learned my lessons years ago when I stepped away from the corporate world. But maybe there was one more lesson waiting. Maybe it wasn't enough to live authentically. Maybe part of the journey was allowing others to see that authenticity, to witness that it's possible to have success without arrogance, wealth without ostentation, power without dominance. Maybe my secret wasn't meant to stay secret forever. Maybe it was meant to be revealed at exactly this moment, to exactly these people, for exactly this reason. The universe, as I said, has a sense of timing. The weeks that followed brought changes, subtle but significant. Word spread through the neighborhood as I knew it would. Suddenly, people who'd barely acknowledged me were striking up conversations. Some were genuinely happy for me, curious about my story. Others were clearly recalculating their relationship with me, wondering what they could gain from knowing someone wealthy. I handled it the same way I'd always handled attention, with grace, with boundaries, and with a clear sense of who I was and what I valued. Patricia stopped by one afternoon with a casserole. "I just wanted to say," she told me, "that I'm glad nothing's changed. You're still you. That's rare." Susan invited me to coffee, not because she wanted anything, but because she'd always liked our conversations and wanted to continue them. "I'm glad I really see you now," she admitted. Mr. Kim at the corner store treated me exactly the same, which I appreciated more than he could know. "Money comes and goes," he said with a shrug. "Good people are forever. You were good people before, you're good people now." Simple. But the most significant change was with Tasha. That Friday dinner at her house was awkward at first. She'd stressed about what to cook, what to wear, how to act. When I arrived with a bottle of wine, a nice one, but not aggressively expensive, she looked relieved to see me in jeans and a sweater. "I was worried you'd show up looking like you just left a photo shoot," she admitted. "I don't even own fancy dishes." "Neither do I use mine," I said, which was technically true. James turned out to be genuinely nice, quiet, thoughtful, clearly uncomfortable with the lifestyle Tasha had been pushing them toward. Over dinner, surprisingly good homemade lasagna, they told me their story. They'd been college sweethearts, married young, worked hard. James was in middle management, making decent money, but nothing spectacular. Tasha had left her career to focus on maintaining their lifestyle, which really meant maintaining appearances. "I thought if we looked successful enough, James would get promoted faster," Tasha explained. "I thought the right image would open doors. Instead, we just opened credit card bills." "We're deep in debt," James added quietly. "And I don't know how we're going to climb out." I didn't offer to help financially. That wasn't what they needed, and it wouldn't have been healthy for any of us. But I did offer something else. "I know a financial advisor who specializes in debt management. She's excellent, discreet, and she'll help you create a realistic plan. It won't be easy, but it's doable." I also offered James some career advice, introduced him to a few people in his industry, wrote him a recommendation for a position he was pursuing. Not because of Tasha, but because he was talented and deserved a shot. Over the following weeks, I watched them slowly transform. Tasha traded in the leased SUV for a practical sedan. She started shopping at regular stores, stopped name-dropping, began focusing on what she actually enjoyed rather than what impressed others. One morning, I found her in her front garden, planting bulbs for spring. "I forgot how much I used to love gardening," she said. dirt under her nails, genuine smile on her face. Before I decided it wasn't impressive enough. "It's one of life's great pleasures," I said. "Want some advice on those tulips?" We spent an hour talking about soil and sun exposure and the satisfaction of watching something grow. Just two neighbors, sharing knowledge, being human. The following month, I hosted a small dinner party. Nothing elaborate, just good food, good wine, good conversation. I invited Patricia, Susan, Linda, Tasha and James, and Mr. Kim and his wife. We ate my grandmother's recipes. We laughed. We told stories. We were just people, connecting authentically, without pretense or performance. At one point, Susan raised her glass. "To Maya," she said, "for showing us what really matters." "To Maya," everyone echoed, but I shook my head. No, to all of us, to remembering what's important, to choosing authenticity over appearances, to being brave enough to be ourselves. To being ourselves, they agreed. Later, as I was cleaning up, Tasha stayed behind to help. "You know," she said, drying a plate, "I spent so much energy trying to seem better than everyone else. I thought that was the goal. But you showed me something different. You showed me that the goal is to be comfortable with who you are. Everything else is just noise." "It took me a long time to learn that lesson," I said. "And it's one you have to keep learning, over and over." "Tell me more about her," Tasha said. "Your grandmother." So I did. I told her about the woman who raised me with nothing but love and wisdom. About her dignity, her strength, her ability to find joy in simple things. About Sunday mornings at church, her voice rising clear and strong in the choir. About the community center where she volunteered, making sure nobody went without. About the meals she'd cook on a shoestring budget that somehow fed half the neighborhood. About the lessons she taught me, not with lectures, but with her example. She used to say that some people wear their crowns on their heads for everyone to see, but the real queens wear them in their hearts. And that kind of crown never tarnishes. Tasha was quiet for a moment. "I want to be that kind of queen," she said finally. "Not the kind who needs everyone to know she's royalty, the kind who just is." "You're already on your way," I told her. The months passed. Winter came, then spring. The tulip bulbs Tasha and I planted together bloomed in both our gardens, bright yellow and deep purple, cheerful against the new green grass. James got the promotion he'd been working toward, with a significant pay raise. Not because of who he knew, but because he'd proven his worth. They were slowly paying down their debt, slowly rebuilding their life on a foundation of reality rather than illusion. Tasha started volunteering at the library with me on Thursdays. She was good with the kids, patient and encouraging. She didn't talk about her past behavior, her old lifestyle. She just moved forward, becoming a better version of herself, one choice at a time. One afternoon, we were helping a little girl with her math homework when the child looked up at Tasha and said, "You're really nice. You must be rich." Tasha and I exchanged glances. She smiled. "Why do you say that, sweetie?" Tasha asked. "Because my mama says rich people have time to be kind. Poor people are too busy working." Tasha's eyes filled with tears. "Your mama is very wise," she said. "But the truth is, anyone can be kind. Rich or poor, busy or free. Kindness is a choice, and it doesn't cost anything." "Oh," the little girl said, considering this. "Then I want to be kind too." "I think you already are," Tasha told her. As we walked home that evening, Tasha was quiet. Finally, she said, "That little girl changed my whole perspective. I thought being rich meant having things, showing things, proving things. But really, being rich means having the ability to make a difference, to be kind, to help." "Now you're getting it," I said. She laughed. "Only took me almost destroying my marriage and my finances to figure it out. Better late than never." We reached the point where our paths diverged, her turning left to her house, me turning right to mine. "Maya," she called after me. "Thank you for giving me grace, for seeing something in me worth believing in." "You found it yourself, Tasha. I just held up a mirror." Spring turned to summer. The garden bloomed. The neighborhood settled into a comfortable rhythm. People knew who I was now, but it didn't define our relationships. I was still Maya, the woman who helped kids with homework, who made incredible peach cobbler, who had a green thumb and a ready smile. The foundation work continued, quiet and steady. The hospital wing opened, and I attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony. This time, I let them use my name on a small plaque. Not for ego, but because I realized that visibility could inspire others, could show that wealth could be used for good. One evening, I was sitting in my backyard watching the fireflies emerge in the twilight. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Richardson, this is Amanda Chen. You helped my dad's store on Maple Street, and you helped me with my college applications last year. I just wanted to let you know I got into a top engineering program with a full scholarship. Thank you for believing in me. You changed my life." I sat there, reading that message over and over, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not pride, exactly. Not satisfaction. Something deeper. Purpose, connection, meaning. This is what wealth was for. Not to buy things or impress people or maintain status, but to open doors, to create opportunities, to change lives in ways both big and small. Another text came in, this time from Richard. "Board meeting next Tuesday. Also, the foundation needs to make some decisions about next year's grant allocations. And Maya, I'm proud of who you are. Just thought you should know." I smiled, typing back a simple thank you. As the stars came out, I thought about the journey of the past year. The revelation, the conversation, the transformation, not just Tasha's, but my own. Because in choosing to be visible, in allowing my secret to be known, I'd learned something important. Humility isn't about hiding your accomplishments. It's about knowing that your accomplishments don't make you more valuable as a person. They're simply what you've done, not who you are. And who I am? I'm Maya Richardson, granddaughter of a house cleaner who sang in the church choir, former tech CEO, current philanthropist, volunteer, gardener, neighbor, friend. I'm a woman who learned that you don't have to choose between success and authenticity. You can be ambitious and humble, wealthy and grounded, influential and kind. I'm a woman who wears her crown in silence, not because I'm hiding, but because I don't need anyone to see it to know it's there. The fireflies danced in the darkness, tiny lights in the vast night. Each one small, but together, creating something beautiful. That's what we all are, I thought. Individual lights, sometimes hidden, sometimes visible, but always valuable. From next door, I heard laughter. Tasha and James in their backyard, their voices warm and genuine. Real laughter, not performative joy. The sound of people who were finally comfortable in their own skin. I raised my glass of wine to them, to the fireflies, to the universe that had brought us all to this moment. Some wear their crowns in silence, I whispered to the night, and the night, in its wisdom, didn't answer. It didn't need to. The truth was already known.